On this Veterans Day, we wanted to spend some time looking at the role of journalists and their coverage of America's conflicts. And to talk about this, we're joined by John Maxwell Hamilton. He's a former foreign correspondent and currently the Dean of Journalism at Louisiana State University. He's also the author of Journalism's Roving Eye, a history of American foreign reporting. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you.
How do you think that our reporting of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq compare to past conflicts like World War I and II and Vietnam?
Compare in terms of quality of reporting, I'd say probably on a par. Fact is, war coverage, combat reporting is very difficult to do. You're on one side, and you obviously have certain patriotic sensitivities on the part of readers, viewers, and listeners, and editors, and political leaders who don't want you to stray too far from that. So, in a case like that, it's hard to provide balanced news, hard to provide news about the other side.
Most of the recent war reporting that we see has been done by reporters, journalists who are embedded with military units. Do you think that that compromises the objectivity, the way that the story is presented to the public?
Well, it can give you a good picture of what's happening to troops on the front lines, and that's an important story. But it's not the whole story of the war. The whole story of wars has to do with the larger strategic issues and how planning is executed and how well it's realized. And I think it's worth saying that although we talk about embedded as if it were a new idea, embedding goes way back. Pretty much all wars have had embedded journalism, and in World War I, in fact, there was a strong impetus on the part of military leaders to get people like Ernie Pyle and many other reporters on the front line, where they would report good hometown stories about GIs and not necessarily be looking at the larger strategic.
Right. Do you think that it's somehow that has become more controversial, though, in recent conflicts? Well,
I think journalists recognize that it's very hard to do that job of covering wars, and so there's always pushback. And I wouldn't want to suggest, by the way, that there hasn't been some good war reporting. But it's a special kind of reporting. It's not the normal kind of even foreign affairs reporting. And there's an inherent tension that exists between being an American on one side of the lines and being an objective, balanced journalist.
There's also been a lot of discussion within our industry about the crisis that we're seeing in journalism these days. Budget cuts, fewer foreign bureaus overseas. Do you feel that the major news outlets are sort of contributing in some way to the decline of international news coverage?
Foreign news is the most expensive kind of news to get, and it also is the news that's oftentimes the least interesting to the great majority of Americans. And so a lot of budget-strapped news media, traditional news media, found it necessary to pare back their coverage. But there are also alternatives, other kinds of organizations that are providing news. Bloomberg, for example, which is a premium news service that you pay extra for, has put 1,200 editors and reporters abroad. So there are other ways to get foreign news. That's just one. Foreign reporting is not going to die, but it's going to appear in a lot of different kinds of models, I think, besides the old traditional foreign correspondent.
Right. So what about the old traditional foreign correspondent? Does he or she become a thing of the past?
No, I don't think so. There are still AP. We're in the building that AP is in. AP does a terrific job. Actually, it's beefed up coverage. I just gave you an example of Bloomberg News, which has put a lot of people in the field. Wall Street Journal is doing more reporting, and good old venerable foreign affairs reporting from places like the New York Times has not ended and won't, I don't believe.
All right, John Maxwell Hamilton, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.